The press reports that came out about you in the past year, you would not be sitting here talking to me as the Secretary of State. It seems like reports of your political death were premature.
Well, I hope with this little bit of exchange we've had, you understand the man better. That's why I'm still here. Those things don't bother me. I'm here to serve my country. I committed to this president. My word is my bond. I ride for this brand. That's why I'm here. And nothing anybody else says is going to change that. I'll now return to private life as a private citizen, as a proud American, proud of the opportunity I've had to serve my country. God bless all of you. God bless the American people. God bless America.
That was outgoing Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on 60 Minutes last month and in his outgoing address earlier Tuesday. Joining me now from Washington to discuss Tillerson's firing is New York Times State Department correspondent Gardiner Harris. And on set with us is CBSN political contributor and Real Clear Politics reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. All right, Gardiner, let's start with you. How surprising is it that Tillerson was fired now after months of speculation that he was being pushed out?
Look, I think these things are always surprising when they happen. The rumors obviously had been swirling for months. Tillerson had been dismissing those rumors, often somewhat angrily, for months. And as the clip that you showed, he really saw himself as this almost cowboy-like figure riding into Washington with a very different kind of straightforward ethic. But I think what that often left him kind of on the odd man out. He really didn't play, he sort of proudly didn't play the Washington game. And as a result, he was sort of eaten alive by the Washington game. He didn't sort of handle the president particularly well. He really didn't handle the White House and its byways particularly well. And, as we may talk later, he was very poor at managing the department. So overall, I was with him on this trip to Africa that he was on this past week. We flew into Washington at 4 a.m. this morning. I'm a little unshaven because
you're remarkably fresh looking, Gardiner.
But I was with him for days upon days upon days, and he very clearly had no idea. We were at a refueling stop in Cape Verde, these little islands off of Africa, and he was joking and jocular, very happy that this trip had been behind him. He even though the White House, of course, says, look, John Kelly called him on Friday to give him a warning. But what the State Department people say is, look, John Kelly just said that he might get a bad tweet from the president. He had no idea that tweet would actually end up firing him. And sure enough, that's how Tillerson found out that he had been fired, when a staff member showed him the president's tweet this morning. And as that next clip showed, he clearly was shaken. And you were just talking about this Pennsylvania election. I mean, it's remarkable that this administration did this today, because I just can't imagine that it plays well with anybody to see, this proud man brought to near tears.
Caitlin, I want to go back to something Gardiner said a moment ago about Tillerson being somehow unwilling or unable to play the quote-unquote Washington game. Mm-hmm. But in effect, isn't the Washington game now a game that is played with revised rules, where it is a constituency of one, and that person is in the Oval Office?
It is a really good point. And, I was recalling conversations I was having with former State Department officials and White House officials during the transition when the president was kind of auditioning all of these characters. Remember, Mitt Romney was among them. And everybody said something in common, which was the Secretary of State is a position in which you have to be on the same page as the president. It's not like the Department of Justice or the Attorney General, where it's designed to be independent from it. The State Department, the Secretary of State will be that person who is out there discussing and promoting the president's line of thinking on world issues. And so you did have this sense sense when Trump hired Tillerson that he was appealing to Trump's kind of business sense. This was a guy named Rex Tillerson, who was a big guy at Exxon, knew this stuff well. It turns out that he had a very different worldview than the president, and they butted heads on a lot. And after those moron comments that were reported,
which he didn't deny,
which he has never denied, which is very interesting to me up until this. It's clear that he didn't have the confidence of the president. It's just very hard to maintain that position. I think everybody's looking at this firing, though, and the way in which it was done to see what kind of posture Trump is presenting moving forward, and especially just to place this in the backdrop of this special election, but also the midterms in general, where the president is headed for a really tough environment, and whether this is all part of his thinking, trying to do things his way. We'll see.
Ed, you are in Washington. You cover Capitol Hill. On this question of how surprising this was, I mean, there was even this term, Regxit, right?
Brexit, that's right.
That was coined months ago when this news that President Trump was looking at replacing him, pushing him out, first surfaced. And the White House denied it initially. Here we are. Rex Tillerson is out.
I don't think anyone's surprised that he's gone. I think they were surprised, as Gardiner was, that it happened today as he was coming back from an Africa trip, as this special election was preparing to unfold. But he didn't have many congressional allies. Bob Corker, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, and him, I think, had sort of bonded and gotten to know each other. They have similar business backgrounds and are from the South, so they shared that sensibility. But beyond Corker and a few others, there really weren't that many allies for him up there. Pompeo's a different story. He passed with 66 votes to be CIA director. He'll have a tough road to hoe, I think, in a confirmation hearing. But he's a better-known quantity because he has played the Washington game so long and is a former member of Congress.
Gardiner, let me ask you, President Trump mentioned earlier Tuesday that he's, quote, very close to having the cabinet he wants. What do you make of that? I know you've been traveling with the Secretary of State, but could other cabinet members be in troubled waters here?
Oh, very much so. I think what's really happening now is that President Trump has passed his 1 year in office. And there was a real sense, I think, within the White House that the job was sort of too big for him, that he was really intimidated by the job in those first few months. I think there's a sense coming out of the White House now that President Trump is newly confident in this job, that he feels like he gets it now, and that he doesn't really need around him these people who kind of get him down. And instead, he really wants people around him that kind of feed the part of him that he thinks got him elected. And that's very much that populist, right-wing part of himself. So he doesn't really want what a lot of people have talked about as the adults in the room. Rex Tillerson was one of those adults in the room who really wanted to slow him down when he wanted to get out of the Paris Climate Accord, when he wanted to break out of TPP, when he wanted to break the Iran nuclear agreement. There are all these various policy positions that Rex Tillerson and the president just sort of fundamentally disagreed on. And there is this sort of growing rumor, of course, that the next chip to fall will be the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, another person that the president obviously doesn't feel comfortable with. Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, briefs the president every day on the intelligence. And the president and Mr. Pompeo have apparently struck up a great simpatico kind of accord, which is why he's going to be the Secretary of State. And there is a sense that he's going to kind of clear house in the next week or two to get ready for this next year, in part, I think, because also that election in Pennsylvania, they worry is going to go against them. And they want to sort of stop this narrative that they fear will come out of tonight that says that, the Trump administration is on its heels and is going to get hammered in the midterm elections.
Yeah, all eyes on that 18th district in Pennsylvania. Gardiner Harris and Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you for joining us. Ed, we are going to see you on the other side of the break. Coming up.